Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the June 27th edition of Huntsville Council. I can confirm we are now live, and I will call the meeting to order. Councillor Stone, would you please read the land acknowledgement statement?
Happily. I would like to respectfully acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe under the terms of the Robertson-Huron Treaty Number 61 of 1850 and the Williams Treaties of 1923. We commit to acknowledge, learn, educate, create opportunity, honor sacred spaces, and take actions towards real truth and reconciliation in support of our commitment to walking the path together in respect, peace, and harmony for future generations.
Thank you for that. I have a resolution moved by Deputy Mayor Alcock, seconded by Councillor Armour. Be it resolved that the regular council meeting agenda dated Monday, June 27th, 2022 be adopted as printed and circulated. All in favor? That carries. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interests? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have two. Item 523, Planning Committee meeting for June 15th, and it has to do with 228 Main Street West, because I have a family member working for the contractor for that particular project, and also 631 Rivermill Park washrooms, because of course my employer is involved in that particular transaction, from what I understand. So, thank you.
Okay. And Councillor Withey?
Thank you, Your Worship. I have conflict with respect to 5.2.3, Planning Committee minutes, and 7.2.5 as the application in this case as a client.
Okay. And I also have a conflict on closed session item, closed session item 11.1.1, personal reasons as a neighboring property. Okay, so just before we start our regular council meeting, I wanted to let council know, for anybody who hasn't seen it, that we have now got our commitment rock installed in the little park out beside us. And in case everybody hadn't seen it, I asked Lisa Spolnick if she would be kind enough to make us a quick video so that we are going to see our rock in place. Here you go. And there's the bronze moccasins. And this is obviously taken on a nice, bright, sunny day. So I just wanted to take a minute to thank a couple people. That is our land acknowledgement statement on the rock, and that was developed over time by former employee Terry Suter in consultation with our Indigenous partners. And the child moccasins are there to remind us of the tragedy of residential schools. And I want to thank Colleen McDonald, who originally helped with this project. And I want to thank Trish Conley-Knight and Tina Scott Burns, who took over in Colleen's absence and made sure that that got installed. Sanderson Monuments did a great job on engraving, and Castaway Foundry did the bronze moccasins. So I hope that all of our residents and visitors to the area get a chance to go by and have a look and reflect on that. So just wanted to share that. And I have a resolution moved by, well, I don't know who that's moved by. Moved by Councillor Schumacher, seconded by Councillor Armour. Be it resolved that the regular council meeting minutes dated May 24th, 2022 be adopted as printed and circulated. All in favor? And that's carried, and that is why we generally have staff sitting up here, but we have some staff that are under the weather, so I didn't let them sit up here. I have a resolution moved by Counselor Schumacher, seconded by Counselor Armour. Be it resolved that the special council meeting minutes dated June 8th, 2022 be adopted as printed and circulated. All in favor? And that carries. Reports from committees, and we start with the Huntsville Public Library. And I think probably I can sum it up to say that it's business as usual at the library. And if there's any questions about the minutes, I'm happy to take those. And seeing none, we'll move on to the BIA Board of Management and Councillor Stone.
Thank you. Not a lot to report this month. The only thing with the BIA is Canada Day. There will be a concert in River Mill Park from 12 to 6.
Questions? Seeing none, Committee of Adjustment, Councillor Stone.
It was our biggest agenda yet. It was 11 applications. There was one staff recommendation for denial. Committee supported staff's recommendation, and all the rest were approved.
Questions? Seeing none, Huntsville Lake Bays Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, Worship. Actually, there was a quick meeting to go over some financials, but the AGM is going to be taking place tomorrow night via Zoom, so anyone who wishes to tune in can certainly do that. So that's kind of where the bulk of things will be discussed. As you're probably aware, we're a little behind with our meeting schedule and getting this AGM and our financials ratified, but it was due to just staffing issues with the folks who are doing our books and our tax, the remittance, so it's all sort of squared away now, and we're ready to move on, so that's it.
Questions? Councillor Withey.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was wondering if you could share do you have the Zoom coordinates for the meeting for the chamber, or where to find it?
Yes, I'll send it out to all the members of council if you want to zoom in.
Thank you.
And final report, the municipal accommodation tax tourism update, and the tax group is working on their strategic and business plan, and they have consultants called Floor 13 working on it, and I think probably everybody on council's talked to them or met with them. That's going along nicely, and I'm not going to spoil the thunder of Jesse Hamilton and Kelly Haywood, because they will be here Wednesday to talk about all the good things they're doing, so I'll leave that for them. Okay, that's reports. I have a resolution moved by Councillor Armour and seconded by Councillor Schumacher. Be it resolved that the Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting minutes dated May 24th, 2022, and the recommendations contained therein be adopted as printed and circulated. Councillor Armour?
Thank you, Worship. It was a short meeting. We only had one deputation. It was Ms. Shadell was there from the Rotary Club of North Muskoka, and she spoke about the sensory garden proposal. Basically, they'd like to put a garden pathway in with different smells over at the Riverside Park. And so we've sent that back. We did pass a resolution or motion to accept it, but it's gone back to staff now to work with her to see if we can come up with something. There's no cost to the town at all. And it was Accessibility Week last week, too. We raised a flag.
Are there any questions for Councillor Armour? All in favor? That carries. And I have a resolution moved by Councillor Armour, seconded by Deputy Mayor Alcock. Be it resolved that the General Committee meeting minutes dated May 25th, 2022, and the recommendations contained therein be hereby adopted as printed and circulated, with the exception of recommendation number GC 9822 to be pulled and voted on separately. Any questions outside of the motion that's been pulled? All in favor? That carries. Okay, the resolution that was pulled, moved by Councillor Wiebe and seconded by Councillor Stone, where staff have investigated the requirements to impose a vessel operation restriction regulation, VORR, on Clark Lake, and whereas a VORR is considered a tool of last resort for local authorities, And whereas there are a number of requirements for the town to complete prior to applying for a VORR, now therefore it is recommended that staff be directed to continue to work with the concerned residents to attempt to resolve the issue of powered vessels on Clark Lake using means other than the VORR at this time. And further, that should a resolution not be found by September 2022, staff be directed to report back on proceeding with the VORR process, including appropriate resources and costing associated. And I have an amendment, but is there a discussion prior to the amendment? So discussion on the motion that was pulled first? Okay. I will go to Councillor Weeb or Deputy Mayor Alcock first. Deputy Mayor Alcock.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I think I was one of maybe a couple of people who thought that there was merit in pulling this recommendation after some consideration. I know that we talked about it at the time at General Committee, and part of the discussion was whether or not there was merit in sending it back and having some form of mediated solution. And since then, we've had correspondence from one of the residents, and I believe, Tarmo, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you may have had discussions with her between then and now, but or you don't, okay. And upon reflection, it seems to me that the idea of going to mediation is, well, it seems like a rational course in this case. I don't think it will work. I think that there's no harm in submitting an application to get this process going. And I recognize at the time that there was some concern about staff time in doing this. We've also had Terry Suter has offered her services because she's really familiar with this issue. I believe she's talked to the department and is able to do a lot of the application work. So there is some discussion about perhaps letting her do the application work with the proviso that nothing is signed off until reviewed by our CAO, by you, by whomever council thinks is important. So I'm sort of digressing a little bit. I just think that from my perspective, it's important, it's an important step. I don't think the mediation is the right approach at this point. I think we should go directly to the application. So that's what I think.
Tarmo, did you want to respond? Or do you want me to go to the rest of council? Okay. You came up and I just thought you might want to jump in quickly, but Councillor Weeb, did you have anything to add there?
No, thank you, Your Worship. No, I don't think that I could add much to what Deputy Mayor Alcock has stated. I would agree with what's been said, that I think a more streamlined and direct approach is probably the best course of action in this one. And so that's why I'm hoping that maybe we can find something that is more expedited, a more expedited process. Thanks.
Anyone else? Councillor Withy.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess I was confused with this because I thought part of the original motion was to direct them to actually proceed with this application, but apparently not. But I too agree that a mediation is not going to go anywhere in this case, and I think that Ms. Suter has made a very generous offer to take the ball and do what she can with it, along with direction and stuff. So I think that's what we need to get going, because there wasn't there a time thing? If you miss a time, you've got to wait for a whole entire year or something. Yeah, so I think we need to move. Thanks.
Okay, I do have an amendment before me, moved by Deputy Mayor Alcock and seconded by Councillor Weeb. Be it resolved that paragraph 3 and 4 be struck out, and further that the following paragraph be added. Now therefore be it resolved that staff begin the application process to apply to Transport Canada to have a vessel operation restriction regulation passed on Clark Lake, including conducting all necessary consultations with Indigenous peoples for whom such restrictions may impact treaty-protected hunting and fishing rights. Deputy Mayor Alcock, any? This does not address Ms. Suter's offer to help, but this was the amendment that's before us, so.
If I may, it was a question, I did sign that proposed amendment, and I wondered, perhaps it's a question to our CAO. Is it important that we have that direction to Ms. Suter to be included in that motion?
Through your worship, so I would recommend that if council's desire is for us to proceed with the application, that we actually oversee that process internally. We just need direction from council to proceed with the application, and we will figure out the resources required at that time.
If I may follow up. Thank you for the response. The last time we talked about this, there was some concern that there wasn't enough staff time. So I'm just wondering, does this put us backwards, or are we feeling comfortable that we have the resources to do this?
So through your worship, so it will require staff time as identified in the report. We will have to reevaluate what staff are currently working on and decide what will just have to be put to the side to process the application. Staffing resources are going to be tight. The issue is when it's an application submitted by the town of Huntsville, to have an outside agency or individual complete that application on our behalf. It would just be better if we complete the application internally. And I will have to work with staff, and we'll just try to manage the workload and decide what needs to be completed.
Thank you for that. One last follow-up, if I may. Thank you for the response. And I'm just curious if the person that has offered to fill out the application does do that and then has sign-off from the appropriate individuals on our staff, is that something that we'd consider?
Through your worship, we would have no problem working with Ms. Suter to complete the application, but I think it needs to be driven by the town of Huntsville, but we would have no problem reaching out to her, for sure.
That's brilliant.
Okay. Sorry
Thanks.
if I wasn't clear, Councillor.
No, and
Deputy Mayor.
I'm sure I wasn't clear in my question. Thank you very much for that.
Councillor Withey?
Thank you, Your Worship. Actually, I think that last little bit of information was what I was kind of going to dig into as well, but Deputy Mayor Alcock handled it quite well. Thanks.
Any further questions, comments? I just have one, I guess, I would direct to you, Tarmo, and that's, given that this application needs to be filed, I believe there's a deadline in August, and I'm not sure what the date is, but the necessary consultations with Indigenous people, what's the anticipated timeline for that, or would it be done in conjunction with submitting the application?
That process can, Your Worship, can happen in parallel with the actual application completion. So you can get that in, lock in the fact that you met the deadline, and then the consultations can occur. But the consultation, the application will not be passed by the federal government until such time as the proper consultations have been completed.
Okay. So I think where we ended up here now after our general discussion last time is that the folks on Clark Lake want to see that application submitted by this August because of timelines, and that seems to be council's will, so this resolution addresses that, correct? Okay. All right, all in favor of the resolution? And that carries. Thank you. I have a resolution moved by Deputy Mayor Alcock, seconded by Councillor Armour. Be it resolved that the Planning Committee meeting minutes dated June 15th, 2022.
Mayor Terziano, I'm so sorry to interrupt. Can you please do the main motion as amended?
Sorry, yeah,
Thank
thanks.
you.
And I have a resolution moved by Deputy Mayor Alcock and seconded by Councillor Wiebe, and that is the main motion as amended. All in favor? Thank you. And thank you, Tanya. Now I have a resolution moved by Deputy Mayor Alcock and seconded by Councillor Armour. Be it resolved that the Planning Committee meeting minutes dated June 15th, 2022, and the recommendations contained therein be adopted as printed and circulated. And I have a conflict of interest by Councillor Thompson and Councillor Withy on this one. Deputy Mayor Alcock, highlights from the meeting.
Thank you, Your Worship. I can be quick. It was, we had 4 zoning amendment applications, 2 for information only, and 2 for approval. Committee approved both of them. Staff had recommended denial on the second, and committee voted in favor. We also had 4 site plan application recommendations, and committee approved all 4 of those. And finally, committee approved under old business, committee approved a recommendation to recommend to District of Muskoka approval for a phased condominium application on Haynes Road, and committee voted in favor of that.
Questions? All in favor? Councillor Withy, you can't vote. You have a conflict. I have a resolution moved by Councillor Stone, seconded by Councillor Weed. Be it resolved that council approve the appointment of the following law firms for legal services for the town of Huntsville for a period of up to 5 years with the option to renew for 3 additional 1-year terms as outlined in Report Corp. 2022-58. Airden Bearless, Barriston Law, Bog Haitian and Allen, Ewart O'Dwyer, and Loopstra Nixon. And further that the bylaw be considered by council. Jessica.
Thank you, Mayor Terziano. On October 27th, 2021, staff were directed to initiate a vendor of record arrangement for legal services. Law firms responded to the VOR for practice areas they were interested in, including general litigation, general municipal matters, planning law, and real estate. Staff are recommending the law firms outlined in the motion be awarded the VOR in their respective practice areas. Thank you.
Questions? Councillor Withy.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thanks, Jessica. I noticed in a number of cases, I mean, some of these law firms are quite large, and a number of cases the same law firm is under each one. Was there any thought to just picking, like, you want to pick so many, is there any thought to just picking 1 horse or 2 horses or 5 horses?
The law firms applied for the areas that they were interested in, and we scored them and assigned accordingly.
Your Worship, but I see them sort of repeated across the board. Why would we overcomplicate what we do if somebody, are you saying like Airden Bearless, for example, said, yeah, we're going to tick all these boxes, but we really don't care for those pieces or something? I'm not understanding why there's so many to pick, that we're picking so many when it looks like you could pick 1 or 2.
We have various practice areas that we acquire legal services within the corporation, and it was up to the law firm to choose which area they wish to apply for. And if they met the required scoring, then they were on the list.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Armour.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick question. So I guess, Jessica, I mean, so then you get to choose one of these legal firms for that particular one. So if one's busy and can't do the other, then you choose another one. So that's why you have to submit. Okay, thanks. I understand.
Okay. Thanks, Jessica. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Have a resolution moved by Councillor Weed and seconded by Councillor Stone. Be it resolved that council authorize staff to enter into an agreement with Smokin' Hot Barbecue for the concession services at McCully Robertson Recreation Park, and further that staff be authorized to negotiate a lease with Smokin' Hot Barbecue to the satisfaction of the Director of Community Services, and further that the value of the lease be at the 2022 council-approved budgeted lease rate of $10 12 for the season, prorated for 2022, and further, the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign all required documentation. Simone?
Good evening, thank you. Mayor Terziano, this is in front of you, council, in the essence of time to meet our summer schedule. An RFP went out with no submissions, and since then, we've been approached by Smokin' Hot Barbecue to be able to take over the concession at Macaulay Robertson Recreation Park.
Questions? Councillor Schumacher?
Thank you, through you to Director Babineau. So previously it was Connor Homes. Was that sort of as a fundraiser type thing, or for them to make money for a non-for-profit organization, and that's where the RFP originally went out?
Through you, Mayor Terziano, the original RFP went out in 2016, and we had the same response to our RFP, and then Connor Homes came forward. They provided a service there as a secondary location. They were asked if they want their lease went to 2021 with the extension, and they weren't able to open because of COVID. When we asked them to go back, if they were interested in extending that to this year, they were not able to do so. Their business has changed, and so they weren't in a position to do so.
Councillor Withey?
Thank you, Your Worship. I've been informed that I have to declare conflict on this one, too. I completely forgot
So noted.
that the Smokin' Hot is a client.
Councillor Thompson?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Simone. Simone, what's the history of the usage of the facility at Macaulay Robertson? Like, in the past, has it been successful for anyone? I mean, it seems to me it's been hit and miss over the years type of thing. So do we have a success rate? Or what's been the general experience that these operators have had there?
Through you, Mayor Terziano. I do believe that Connor Homes was happy there, and it was a good experience. It certainly was for our user groups. They appreciated them being there. It just isn't in their business to be able to do so currently, and certainly they were not able to open during COVID. So that certainly has changed things. So our last opening date, I think, was summer of 2019, and they were quite happy. So the dollar amount that you see in there is what was approved by council in terms of budget for revenue for that location. And based on that and the hours, the extended hours that this concession can be open, it is seen as a viable location.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Armour?
Thank you, Worship. Through you, I'm just curious, I didn't see hours of operation in here. You know, are they just going to be opening when the fields are going to be used, I would imagine, or are they hard rule you have to be open this time?
Through you, Mayor Terziano, they work with us with the schedule. So certainly we've got soccer, baseball, softball. We've got a number of user groups in that space. They typically will meet with our requirements and also for the weekend tournaments, so extended hours for tournaments and that kind of thing. Certainly they're not open set hours because we don't always have people in the park using the fields, at least as paid user groups. Certainly they still might be open if people go by the dog park or just for a walk. Yeah.
Councillor Schumacher?
Sorry, again, follow up. Yeah, I see the timeline, because normally it should have been open Victoria Day weekend. So it says for a year and then up to an additional 3 years. So is that they can decide after a year that they may not want to continue, or is that us maybe putting it out to other businesses as an opportunity to see how this goes, and then they could, after a year, also submit before the 3-year term is agreed to?
Through you, Mayor Terziano, both parties have that option. So we have the choice to not renew, and so might they. So we do that on a yearly basis, and then if they're not interested, then we can go back out with an RFP again. Yeah.
Okay. All in favor? carries. Counselor Whitby has a conflict. And I think the users at the Ball Diamonds will be very happy when Smoking Hot gets set up. Have a resolution moved by Counselor Stone, seconded by Counselor Schumacher. Be it resolved that staff be directed to enter into a lease agreement with 1017-6532 Ontario Inc. for the use of the washroom facilities located at 8 West Street during July and August 2022, with the new terms as outlined in Report CS 2022-18, and further that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the required documentation, and further that Resolution 11922 be hereby rescinded. And Councillor Thompson has declared a conflict. Simone?
Through you, Mayor Terziano, I'd like to address that this report is really just a housekeeping item. We brought this to council last month to be able to sign this lease. In fact, since then, Caldwell Banker building has been sold, and in our in the motion that went forward, we named Caldwell Banker, so we needed to just clean that up a little bit.
All in favor of the resolution? And that carries. And I have a resolution moved by Deputy Mayor Alcock, seconded by Councillor Armour. Be it resolved that council directs staff to proceed with the detailed planning and costing of moving the Kent Park kiosk for use as a permanent washroom in Rivermill Park. And further that the detailed planning and costing for the permanent washroom be brought back to council for final approval at the July 2022 council meeting. And I will turn that over to you, Tarmo, although I think that resolution, the Kent Park kiosk is the kiosk that's currently in Rivermill Park, so just so there's no confusion there.
Thank you, Your Worship. I did do detailed background and research on the history of this, and it's referenced through the documentation as the Kent Park kiosk, but you're correct, it is in Rivermill Park. The hut in Rivermill Park just didn't seem right for a proper report, so. When we're looking at the different options, we're really left with down to two. If we're not talking about portable toilets for the summer, for the peak summer months, and we're looking at something more permanent, you've got the two options, either to move the building, the Kent Park kiosk within the park to where we can locate where we have services immediately available, or the build of a substantial building similar to what we have in Conroy or in Port Sydney. The permanent building is going to be very expensive to build. And the preferred location has the added technicality of needing to move the community garden. That's the prized location for a washroom would be located on that spot. And then we would also have the technical government permitting aspects. Once we get a washroom facility that close to the river's edge, we would have to look into what kind of environmental impact it has and so on. So there are lots of things. A permanent building could also be located behind the line of trees on the north side of the parking lots. Again, if we don't clear cut all those trees, the vandalism rates would be extremely high, being that it would be hidden behind trees and other issues of personal security may pop up behind there as well. So when we're looking at that, the permanent washroom may not be the ideal fit for Rivermill Park. It was put forward that we should look at the Kent Park kiosk. We've had a look inside with our building team. They've had a look to see whether it would meet our needs under accessibility compliance requirements, as well as whether we could actually structurally use it. And it's a go, it's a green light. The only thing is that we wouldn't be able to winterize it. So it would not be a year-round facility. We would just lose too much space by trying to insulate it. We would have a whole new heating requirements for the floor and things like that in order to keep things from exploding on us. Water, meaning pipes. So the recommendation is to move forward with this is a preliminary costing that I've put forward in the report for the Kent Park kiosk, and that we move forward with do the detailed costing, and then once we have that detailed planning and costing, bring it back for council consideration.
Questions? Deputy Mayor Alcock.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Tarma, for a really thorough report. And I like the way that you sort of went through all of the options. I get the fact that the permanent is costly, and it seemed to have a number of cons associated with it, as you just pointed out. I like the sort of alternative option. I sort of wonder what happens when we have events in the winter in Rivermill Park, but I think that's one of those, maybe we cross that bridge when we get to it, and I think this is a good compromise, so I'll certainly support the proposal. And thank you for the report.
Councillor Stone?
Thanks. I'm really excited about this, and so is the BIA. It seems like a perfect solution. It's a cute little building, and potentially, if this works, maybe we could do something similar at Lookout Field and Avery Beach, and this is cost-effective and wonderful. I thank you.
Councillor Withy?
Thank you, Worship. I'm puzzled a little bit about this. So how big is this building?
Oh, I would be guessing at the exact dimensions. I don't know that off the top of my head.
Is it as big as this square here?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering how many people are going to, how many bathrooms are you going to be able to put in there? How many people, if there's a big festival there, and you got the Kent Park building, I guess you're going to bring in porta potties for a festival maybe, or something?
Through
Because
you,
this-
Wor-
I just think that when I picture that building in my mind, it seems pretty tiny. And you got to put, accessible ladies, men's, others, I don't know what you might have to put in there.
Through you, Worship. Councillor Withy, it would be a unisex washroom,
Okay.
one person at a time for accessibility requirements. For large events, the event organizers are required to provide porta potties throughout, depending on the size of the event. So if we look back to the beer festival that was just held, the porta potties were lined all around the parking lot within in Rivermill Park there.
I'm struggling with one washroom. I think that's not going to be, there is even more than one washroom in the Coldwell Banker building. I get what you've written here. I understand it. I understand the money and all that stuff. I'm just wondering if it's enough. I think maybe, is there an option to, put an addition? I don't know. I'm not a builder. But you know what I mean? It just seems tiny for a permanent type structure that, for the entire park. There's going to be a lineup around the...
Councillor Armour?
I was just going to comment, I think that one would be sufficient now because we still have the ones at Town Hall. And I think it's a good pilot project for us right now to see what moves forward with it and it's cost effective, so.
Councillor Schumacher?
Thank you, through your worship. Yeah, I'm going to echo Councillor Armour and Councillor Alcock that I do think it's a good solution to sort of fix our problem currently right now. And yes, from accessibility standpoint, I understand it's probably similar to like a family style washroom where people can go in with their kids and anybody who does need assistance can have a large enough space. Yeah, I guess for this, we're taking the permanent off the table in this particular report, but I don't want to lose sight of it because as Councillor Stone had mentioned, when we go back to the waterfront strategy, and I know, Tarma, you weren't necessarily here for that, but permanent washrooms were a huge thing that screamed out to us through that waterfront strategy. So yes, as Councillor Stone mentioned, Avery Beach, 95% in our survey wanted a permanent washroom at Avery Beach, and 86% wanted a permanent washroom out at Lookout Hill. So costing and looking at ideas for a permanent washroom, I think still have to be in the forefront of what our town wants. So if this is a nice fix, it's great. How do we fix maybe the seasonal component for some of those other areas to make permanent options that are going to work for the town?
See no other questions? I'll call the question. All in favor? that carries. And thank you for that, and we will see what the numbers and the planning looks like in July. Council, we're at bylaws, and just before I read the bylaws, because we have 5 of them all together, I see that Christopher Nagy is here with our new building inspector that we're about to appoint by bylaw. So Chris, if you want to introduce Adam to council, that would be great.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Council. As you've alluded to, Adam Hall's here as our new plans examiner / building inspector has been appointed. Adam comes to us from the Toronto area and has an education background from George Brown College in the OBOA stream of building officials. So we're real excited to have him here, and he's real excited to be here, hence him coming tonight. So thank you very much. Yeah.
Well, welcome, Adam, and we will make you official here as soon as we get through this resolution. I have a resolution moved by Councillor Schumacher and seconded by Councillor Stone. Do I need to recognize you before I read the resolution, Councillor Thompson? No, okay. Be it resolved that bylaw numbers 2022-78 to 2022-81 inclusive and bylaw 2022-83 be reported and read a first, second, and third time and finally passed this 27th day of June 2022. An amendment to the municipal accommodation tax bylaw, amendment to Schedule C of the delegation of authority bylaw, appointment of the building inspector, Traves 814 Lynx Lake Road rezoning, and Power 236 West Point Sands deeming. Questions? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's through you to Christopher and Adam. Welcome. First of all, I guess once we vote on you, I guess then we'll welcome you officially. But Chris, what does this do to the contingent numbers with regards to building? How many will we have in building when we add Adam?
So thank you.
If we add Adam.
Yeah.
Mayor Terziano.
Please, Adam.
We're not under that right now.
Sorry, Councillor Thompson, you're not being allowed to ask that question, nor are you being allowed to answer it, Christopher. So, it's the rules. All in favor of the bylaws? And that carries. No, sorry. Thanks, Christopher. Thanks, Adam. I have a resolution moved by Councillor Schumacher, seconded by Councillor Armour. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2022-82 be reported and read a first, second, and third time and finally passed this 27th day of June 2022. Bylaw 2022-82, Scheidel 351 Griffin Lodge Road rezoning, and Councillor Withey has a conflict. Questions? All in favor? And that carries. All right, I have a resolution from previous business. Moved by Councillor Wiebe, seconded by Councillor Stone. Be it resolved that Council amends Resolution 127-2022 as follows. The deletion up to 2 nights of work between June 13th, 2022 and June 17th, 2022. Addition up to 4 nights of work between June 28th and July 13th, 2022. And that was our resolution for the noise bylaw to allow the paving to occur. Any questions? All in favor? And that carries. I have a resolution moved by Councillor Wiebe, seconded by Councillor Stone, whereas the GoVax bus and the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit have requested to utilize the following municipal facilities to provide vaccination clinic services: Port Sydney Hall and parking lot, Hutterson Hall and parking lot, Active Living Centre Hall and parking lot. And whereas by providing the space for vaccination services, it allows the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit to ensure they are meeting people where they live and increases access to the COVID-19 vaccines, including first, second, third, or fourth doses. Now therefore be it resolved that Council supports the request and waives all associated rental fees as outlined in the Fee and Charge Bylaw 2021-88 for the remainder of 2022. Questions? All in favor? And that carries. And I have a resolution moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Weed. Be it resolved that the Town of Huntsville Council requests the District of Muskoka for a road section analysis and consideration of a potential speed limit reduction from 60 kilometers to 50 kilometers on Aspiden Road, District Road 3, from 100 meters east of 743 Aspiden Road to Bethune Road. And further, that the District of Muskoka consider line painting white edge of the road delineation and solid yellow center lines on Aspiden Road from 743 Aspiden Road to Bethune Road. Councillor Thompson, I think you asked for this, and did you want to speak to this?
Yes, thanks, Your Worship. I would like to speak to it, and I'd appreciate approval from the rest of council. With regards to this particular section of Aspiden Road, first of all, Aspiden Road is quite busy, busier than you might expect it to be, but as long as we have the landfill site, or not the landfill site, but the transfer station at Stisted, I think Aspiden Road will continue to be quite busy. This particular section of road is particularly problematic. Roads Manager Bocock and I have looked at it carefully. I counted the number of residences and dwellings in that, it's about 1.3 kilometer section of the road. It's also maybe one of the more dangerous curves on the road as well. But there are 25 dwellings in that particular short stretch of road. Plus, on the other side of the road, of course, all of the cottage front properties that come off of the private road also are in that particular section. So the recommendation is that we reduce the speed. We had a close incident there in the spring with a youngster. As I say, it's quite busy, and it's primarily, I think, pickup trucks and it's contractors, I think, for the most part, going to the transfer station. And as we know, it's a busy time of year always for contractors, and they're probably maybe a little bit more prone to exceed that 60. So just for that section of the road, if we could reduce the speed to 50 for that 1.3 kilometers, maybe it's 1.4. That I think would be great, be very helpful for the residents along that section of the road. Thanks.
Okay. Questions, Councillor Withy?
Thank you, Worship. Just a quick question, Councillor Thompson. Was this instigated by the neighbors in that area, or?
It actually was initiated by, the request did come from one of the residents there, yes. And so I was responding to that, and then we did some investigations on it, and for sure, it seems like a viable request from the residents along that particular area. We've also had the district, we borrowed their speed suppression radar unit that was there briefly, and that seemed to hopefully would help. It wasn't there very long. The idea behind the pinching in, according to Roads Manager Bocock, is it pinches the road in, and it has a tendency to slow drivers down, because it makes the lanes just a little bit smaller, a little bit narrower, so it has a tendency to slow the traffic down. And so that's why we're requesting that additional, along with the reduction in the speed from 60 to 50. Thank you.
Councillor Weed?
Thank you, Worship. I certainly signed the motion as a seconder, and I'm going to support it. As it were, I chatted with Brian on the day that he brought it up to me about this speed reduction, and I drove that stretch that day, and didn't I see someone being pulled over by the OPP that day as well? When you really look at it and look closely at the number of dwellings that's been mentioned, and just the way the lay of the land, the lay of that road, I think this makes an abundance of sense, and I'd rather do it now before we're speaking about it after any type of accident there. So I'm in full support of this, and I think it'll be a good strategy.
Councillor Withy?
Thank you. While I don't disagree with this motion, I think you hit the nail on the head, Councillor Weed, but really the biggest effect on any speed limit change is police presence. And I drive that road daily because I take my daughter to school. And I I mean, I myself, I use my cruise control and I go the speed limit, and I don't actually see a lot going through. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen, though. I'm not saying I'm the eye in the sky or anything, but I'll support this. But I would actually, one thing I don't see is a lot of police down there. And that's really kind of the thing that, for me, makes the difference.
Councillor Thompson?
Yes, thanks, Your Worship. And Councillor Wither makes a very good point, and Councillor Weeb as well. And we've talked to the OPP about that. Manager Bocock has talked to the staff sergeant at the Huntsville detachment, and the result has been there has been more of a police presence there. And Councillor Weeb is correct. There has been the odd time, but it's pretty rare when you actually see an officer out there, but it does have that kind of an effect. So we know they're busy and they're probably stretched to the limit as well. So, but whatever we can do to help out that particular section of the road, I think would be great. Thanks.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Councillor Thompson. Thanks for bringing this forward. I get a lot of requests from constituents with exactly this, from 60 to 50. There seems to be little pockets in areas where we can control the speed by even 10 kilometers an hour. It means a difference of 15 or 20 sometimes, the way that people drive. So thanks for bringing this forward. I can support it. And we're going to get together and put a few together for this, for the district. So I guess we'll have to do that in the future.
Okay, all in favor of the resolution? And that carries. And Councillor Thompson, I'll probably get in trouble for this, but could you prod them at the district to see if they've done anything on that Burnell Road speed reduction as well? Okay, we have correspondence in our packages for your information, and we're on to the District of Muskoka update. Deputy Mayor Alcock.
Thank you, Your Worship. We didn't have a lot of items. We had a couple of housekeeping items, including an approval to proceed with a new updated agreement with Bell Canada, which is the new generation 9/11 Authority Service Agreement. So it's just updating the whole 9/11 service, and it actually sounds like it's quite good, and it allows people to access 9/11 a lot easier. It's a lot easier and quickly. So that was good. We spent the amount of time on the adoption of the Muskoka Official Plan Amendment 49, which is Resort Village of Manette, and the district approval of the Township of Muskoka Lakes Official Plan Amendment 56, which is also regarding the Village of Manette. This was quite the meeting because both of these official plan amendments allow the two significant developers in the Manette Village, Marriott Hotels and Legacy Homes, to build up to over 2,000 units, and which is a fundamental shift of what had been previously approved, which was over 4,000. So this had been a long, long process going over at least 10 years, and the meeting that we had last week was the culmination of that, and committee approved it. So it was a big day for Muskoka Lakes.
Questions? Okay. Councillor Withy, Health Services.
Thank you, Worship. We had pretty much the usual sort of lineup of reports that we get every month at Health Services. We get our district health unit update, which talks mostly about the recent COVID activity in the area and things like that. Long-term care services reports, paramedic service reports. I mean, there wasn't anything really other than just sort of routine updating on stuff. What I will say, though, is there are a couple of important dates coming up for Fairburn. We have, on June 30th, there is a little ceremony for handing over of the keys. So that's when the municipality officially takes over from the not-for-profit board. And then on the 11th of August is Fairbairn's anniversary, although I don't think it was the actual date. There was sort of like, anyway, we're going to be doing a sod turning of sorts up at the new site. So that'll be exciting. Other than that, there was a couple of things about access agreements with Ontario Health and all that kind of stuff. So nothing too exciting. Anyway, thank you.
Councillor Thompson, Engineering and Public Works.
You betcha. Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, we had a pretty quick meeting, actually, but there were 3 items that did result in some extended conversation, and they all had to do with budget and budget deviations. One of the, some significant budget deviations, as a matter of fact, one had to do with Muskoka Road 13, which is down in Georgian Bay, but it resulted in a paving contract budget increase from $3.2 million to $4.2 million. And that's $1 million, by the way. It's just for my own edification, because my math is terrific. But yeah, so another $1 million in cost, okay, for that particular section of road. So of course the question was, why such a significant increase in cost? And it's the usual reason we're hearing these days. It has to do with supply side, but also cost of material, and with the price of oil and how that impacts on the construction or the making of asphalt and so on and so forth. It's resulted in a significant increase in that particular contract from 3.2 to 4.2 million. So $1 million has come out of reserves anyway for that particular thing. Whole $1 million. The other one that came up had to do with the budget deviation for a sewage pumping station refurb in the town of Gravenhurst, where the price went from $500,000 to $1.42 million. Like, that is a huge increase in the cost of that. That resulted in a question from Councillor Lorenz from Gravenhurst with regards to why development charges would not have covered off the cost initially. And the answer to that was straightforward. When the development charges were applied to that particular job way back when, the development charges were the appropriate amount at that time. But that was not the cost of the building at that time, right? The cost of this reconstruction. So anyway, it resulted in an increase of from 500,000 to $1.42 million. So significant increase. And then the other thing that took a little bit of time to discuss was the approval of the user fees, Public Works user fees for 2023. And the only one that really was significant there, and I think I was probably guilty of bringing this forward, but had to do with the cost of licenses of occupation for 2023. I've always had a problem with what we charge for licenses of occupation. They're a tremendously good deal for whoever has them. They're a little over $600 to have water access. And so I think staff is going to be taking a look at that and coming up maybe with a different formula of how to go about that, and go maybe look at square footage and that kind of thing, rather than just a straight $600 across the board. And what I suggested to our staff at Gravenhurst, that maybe they could work with the area municipalities as well, because I think we're all in about that same area. I don't know, I remember Lake of Bays was around 500, they're probably a little bit more now. I think we're probably in that same ballpark for licenses of occupation. So anyway, that was my report. Thanks.
Questions? Good. I was not at Finance and Corporate Services last week. However, I did watch the video replay of it today, and a couple significant things happened at it, and that was the budget timelines and the budget guidelines were passed. And they've extended the timelines a bit because of the election for budget, and the guidelines for budget are actually pretty significant. So I'm afraid, and you know, it was all justified by inflation, I'm afraid we're looking at a rather large increase at the district, and which may end up being the same at the town. Anyways, it's going to be a tough budget year. I was at council, but for the life of me, I can't remember what we discussed, and I don't have any notes tonight, so if anybody recalls anything at district council that was significant, speak now or forever hold your peace. I cannot, anyways, that's a nice concise report, isn't it? All right. We're moving on. We have a flag raising on Monday, July 18th, the Muskoka Pride flag raising at 10:45 in Civic Square, and we are back to in-person for those, so that'll be wonderful. I want to share a couple things with council that have happened in June. It's been a busy month, and to share with you, and also to thank a couple people. And we had the Mayor's Bike Ride on June 15th, and thank you, Deputy Mayor Alcock, for joining in on that. And but you know what? It was organized by our town, by Trish and her team at Parks and Rec, and it's sponsored, and a lot of the organization is done by Dr. Lowell Grebe from the Sports Lab, and they've been doing that for a number of years. So I just wanted to publicly thank Dr. Grebe for that and our staff. And less than a week later, we had National Indigenous Day, and that was a great success, and I want to thank Joyce Jonathan Crone for her part in that. Matt Huddleston emceed the day for us and did an amazing event, and Kayla Wadden, Jillian Jordan, Kara McQueen, and Trish Conley Knight, they put in a lot of work. That was a full day's activities from 1 until 7 or 8 o'clock at night, and you know what? They make the mayor look good when they do these things, so I want to say thanks. I also had a visit from a class at Huntsville Public School in late May, and they came over to Partners Hall to present a pitch, and about 15 letters, each written by the students, and half the class presented their letters. Obviously, they didn't present them, they mailed them off to a town in France. They're asking us to consider twin towning with a town in France, and I'm almost afraid to attempt to say it because I have absolutely zero French, but the town is called Les-sur-la-Sorgue. They say it much better than I do. But their letters were amazing. They researched why we should consider twin towning with this town. The size is the same, the population, the geography. They're a tourism town. They have trees and rivers. And our towns actually both received their names in the 1800s. Huntsville in 1886 and the French town in 1890. You can see I'm avoiding saying it again. So I did ask Lauren from Economic Development to search out what it would take to twin town, because these kids were really passionate about the idea. And it seems that there's actually a formal process that might be an awful lot of work for us to enter into. But informally, if both mayors agree, we could twin town with them. And so I've been in contact with the teacher from HBS, and we're waiting to hear back from the mayor there. And if they want to do it, then hopefully this council would be interested. Councillor Fitzgerald?
Thank you, Worship. I think anything we can do to engage our children in something like that is something I would definitely support.
Great. We'll see what happens. Unfortunately, this was a grade 8 class, and they're probably all graduating tomorrow, and we'll be off to high school, but hopefully we don't lose it. And finally, Canada Day, of course, is Friday, and everybody has their invitation to head over to MHP. There's bacon on a bun early. There's the festivities at 10 o'clock, the welcome, some speeches, and of course, everybody's welcome to hand out cupcakes. You know that makes you quite popular at election time if you hand out cupcakes. And there's a chance for the public to come, enjoy the village. They can take a Portage Flyer train ride. As Councillor Stone said, there's a concert all day and a beer fest in Rivermill Park. And then we are having fireworks at 10 o'clock over Hunters Bay. And they will be musically synchronized to the Moose FM 105.5. So anyways, don't forget Canada Day. Great fun, great cupcakes. And with that, let me see if I've missed anything. I don't think so. So that means that we are going to now move into closed session. After the motion to move into closed session has been adopted, please recall that we are still live streaming, so don't chat amongst yourself. Moved by Councillor Weeb, seconded by Councillor Stone, be it resolved that the next portion of the meeting be closed to the public commencing now at 7:12 PM for the purpose of considering the following matters under the Municipal Act. Section 239(2), litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. Confidential Report 2022-108, OLT Appeal, 432 Springfield Road. A trade secret or scientific, technical, commercial, or financial information that belongs to the municipality or local board and has monetary value or potential monetary value, and a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. Confidential Report Corp. 2022-61. All in favor? And that carries. back in open session, and there's no resolutions coming out of closed. So I have a resolution moved by Deputy Mayor Alcock, seconded by Councillor Armour. Be it resolved that confirmation bylaw 2022-84 be received, numbered, and read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 27th day of June, 2022. All in favor? Well, that carries. And I have a resolution moved by Deputy Mayor Alcock, seconded by Councillor Armour. Be it resolved that we do now adjourn at 7:49 PM. All in favor? And that carries.